So welcome, Stevie, to the Network Assist show. Thank you so much for coming on. It's a pleasure having you.
Thanks for the invite.
Yep, thank you so much, and hope you're doing well right now. The world is probably not in a great place with the whole pandemic thing, but hope you're safe with your family and all fine.
Yeah, it's fine. So it's pretty safe in Scotland. So
Yeah.
hopefully maybe one more week.
Yeah, great. And we have a few things to discuss today, so I'll go in parts. So you actually worked for 10 Network in India as well as an analyst or presenter. So right now you work as head of analysis and scouting at Dundee United, which is great. So, and what does it actually involve? What work does it actually involve? As the head of analysis and scouting at Dundee, and what kind of work do you do actually?
So the main part of the job is helping prepare the team for the match at the weekend. So I would study the next opponent, put together a presentation, create a player document for all the opponent players, create videos, and then do a presentation for the staff on the Monday, which would generally be 5 days before the game or a week before the game, just depending on what day the game is at. So there's the opposition analysis part of it, which is kind of, you look for what do they do, what trends do they have through video. Then what you can do is you can try and find what data would support things or would give you a different insight to it. So for example, like passes per shot would be an indication of directness or an efficiency around the goal, for example. So maybe one team is 25 passes per goal, one's maybe 44. So you can go by that and say, well, how direct might they be? But the video will also tell you that. You can see how they build up, play through midfield, play wide, etc. So there's the video part, and then there's the data analysis part, and then the next bit is always, how can we create something to give to the staff so that they've got the most amount of information possible or the best information possible to create the game plan, to prepare training, to set up the team, and then what do they do to ensure that we can win the match. So that's the nuts and bolts of it.
Yeah, and do you actually think that the level of Scottish football or the Scottish Premiership has kind of gone up with the rise of analytics in football?
I don't know if analytics or video analysis makes a huge amount of difference in Scotland. You've got good players who all probably come from a background now where, especially if they come through a good youth academy and a good club, they'll have a background in doing their own analysis. But the vast majority of the improvements of the game come from youth coaching. So the youth coaching level and the quality of that affects the players coming through. So it's more down to coaches at youth level and talent ID, which would improve the level of the game in any country, Scotland, India, Thailand, wherever, more than analytics. Analytics is there to give you an insight or to try and find an edge against your opponent, whether it's pre-match, in play, post-match, the way you can reflect on it, or in terms of recruitment. So maybe you want to use analytics in terms of how do you improve your team, whether it's information that you give to your own players, which can affect the decisions that they make and the positions they take up, or in terms of improving your team through recruitment, as in what do you need in your team and what can you find to do that. So it's, the analytical side or the data side is there to support coaching. It's not there to change it. It's, coaching is always going to be the most important part of any first team.
Yeah, correct. And if you look at the Scottish Premiership, we Rangers appointed Steven Gerrard as their manager. Like they've had kind of a rough spell probably in the last decade or so, but they're trying to compete with Celtic once again. Rangers, it's probably Rangers and Celtic again at the top right now, and they're trying to compete against each other. And Rangers, they've also gone quite far in the Europa League as well. So, what is probably your opinion of Steven Gerrard as a coach? We know as a player, he's probably one of the best, or one of the most gifted midfielders we've seen. But as a coach, as of now, what do you make of him?
I've never seen him coach, so I don't know.
Okay, all right.
I
So
know I know from when he took over Rangers till now, there's an improvement in the standards. I think maybe if you're a player and Steven Gerrard is the coach, you may be on your toes a little bit more, especially if you play central midfield. But I know from the Rangers coaching staff, there's obviously Steven Gerrard, Gary McAllister, who's a good player for Liverpool and Scotland, and Mick Beale, who's a very good coach. So I don't know. I don't know if he's a good coach. Don't know if he's a bad coach. I don't know that. I haven't watched him, but in terms of a staff, I think Rangers have done well to get closer to Celtic than what they have done for the previous few years.
and you had some time in India as well. So you know pretty much about the level of football that is there in India. Probably that might have gone up a bit. A bit probably in the last 3 4 years. Also, since the inclusion of the ISL, probably the standards have gone up, and you see the Indian national team playing with different countries right now. They're kind of competing probably a level higher than that they used to. But in terms of the structure that's there in Europe and the structure that you had seen in India when you were there, I mean, do you think there's been any massive improvements probably in the last 4 5 years, or what are the steps do you think that I mean, small steps obviously, because successes and probably you can't fast forward success, but what are the small structural improvements which you think India can make probably?
I think in India you need to have more opportunities to play for young players. Like if you take cricket, for example, every kid can play cricket, whether it's in an alleyway between two houses, whether it's in school, there's batting nets in every park. So no matter where you go, players have access to a bat, a ball, a set of stumps, and a small playing area to play cricket, and that's why you're always one of the best. So if you take football as an example, how can you recreate that ability to be able to play anywhere? That's really what it comes down to. If you have the second biggest population, you don't necessarily have the second biggest playing participation. The big point of that being, a lot of the good players in India might not even be accessible to a place where they can be seen. I remember going to Asansol in Jharkhand, and doing some training sessions with the Sail Academy and finding a Sheikh Kuranai in there. And then he's obviously now a starter for the national team. So had we not gone to Sail that week, and had I not called Kishore and told him about this player, maybe we don't have a Sheikh in the national team. So it comes down to, from a really fundamental point of view, of how can you get more kids access to playing? And then the second point would be, how can you get more access to better coaching? And then the third part is, how can you get the better players and better coaches into positions where they're exposed? And then the last point of it would be, once you have a base of professional players, how can you get them playing at a good level in India, young enough to get them out? Because for the best young Indian players, if you're 17, 18, 19 years old, maybe 1 or 2 years in the I-League or ISL is good, but if you're a really good player at 19, you need to be going to Japan or Thailand, Korea, even Uzbekistan, places like that, China, to get to playing at a higher level within Asia. And then the really, really good ones, they should be getting themselves to Europe as early as they can. So it's a case of, once you're good enough, can you get to play and train with better coaches, better players, better professional processes? I think I don't want to slaughter anybody, but if you watch a lot of the Indian I-League teams, there's no structure, no coaching. I speak to some of the players who played in I-League, and I remember one really, really highly regarded coach was doing 3-hour training fitness sessions in Goa in the middle of summer. So players are going to break down, they're not going to be fit. Do you know what I mean? So little things like that are going to make a huge difference, and it's just a step-by-step process to be able to do that. And then obviously you've got coach education, you've got player education, you need to add analysis to the process to try and speed it up. There was a problem I found with a lot of the kids in the Baichung Bhutia Academy, that we had kids with weak ankles because they walk around in flip-flops all day. So they don't have any ankle flexibility or ankle strength. So even simple things like the shoes that you wear, are going to make a difference to the strength of the knees and the ankles and the hips. So there's little things that you have to change, but if you can't get a big enough player base, you can't fulfill your potential.